Roger.
The final moments before a national tragedy. Heading home, Shuttle Columbia breaks up in midair.
At 9 o'clock this morning, Mission Control in Houston lost contact with our Space Shuttle Columbia. A short time later, debris was seen falling from the skies above Texas. The Columbia is lost. There are no survivors.
7 crew members lost. NASA officials begin a daunting investigation.
My promise to the crew and to the crew families is that the investigation that we have just launched will find the cause, we'll fix it, and then we'll move on.
Tonight, a CNN special report. Columbia, a shuttle tragedy. From the CNN Center in Atlanta, here's Miles O'Brien.
Good evening. In the 42 years of U.S. human spaceflight, there had never been a fatal accident during the descent to Earth or in landing. But this morning, that all changed. 16 minutes before it was scheduled to touch down in Florida at the Kennedy Space Center, the Space Shuttle Columbia fell apart in the skies over Texas. You're looking at some animation developed through the good graces of analytical graphics, and what you see is the general scenario that occurs on re-entry as a space shuttle returns from space, traveling at some 17,500 miles an hour, breaking its way toward the runway at the Kennedy Space Center in the Florida Peninsula, pitching nose high up, presenting to the strongest portion of the heat, those black tiles there to insulate the space shuttle, which is, after all, an aluminum frame aircraft, from the 3,000 degree heat of re-entry. It was at the absolute apex of that heat, Mach 18, 200,000 feet and change, when the Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrated high over Texas. This scenario is being watched very closely in Houston right now. There is a mission evaluation team right now poring over data which was captured immediately after it became apparent that there was a catastrophic failure of the Space Shuttle Columbia. I'm told that mission managers will be looking very closely and the engineers will be looking closely at what happened to the elevons. These are the flaps in the rear portion of the Space Shuttle Columbia. There is some indication, based on the preliminary look at the data, that there was some unusual movement by these elevons, perhaps something that might have caused an abrupt maneuver very early in this investigation, but that is one of the things being looked at as they burn the midnight oil in Houston in the mission evaluation room. In the morning, there will be a series of meetings, 8 a.m. local time, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., series of management meetings and engineering meetings to look at the data preliminarily, get a sense of where they're headed, and then in the noon hour Central Time, they will report back to reporters with another briefing to give us a better sense of where they're headed with this investigation, still obviously in the very early hours. Coming up in the next hour of this program, extensive coverage of the Columbia tragedy and what might have gone wrong. Also anchoring tonight's coverage, Wolf Blitzer live at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Lou Dobbs from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, and following the Bush administration's reaction, Judy Woodruff in Washington. First, let's quickly update you on the very latest. All future space shuttle flights are now on hold until NASA gets a better grip on what went so terribly wrong this morning, as you see in these pictures, breaking up south of Dallas. Space Agency officials say not to worry, though, about crew members still aboard the International Space Station. They have enough supplies to last until June. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, has been put in charge of recovering and collecting the debris over a tremendously wide swath of the continental United States. The military has been called in to help that search. They're concentrating on eastern Texas. Bits and pieces of the shuttle have also been found in parts of Louisiana. And experts say that because Columbia broke up at 200,000 feet, the debris field could extend to even into Arkansas, Arizona, and New Mexico. Outside NASA headquarters and at the White House, flags flying at half-staff, a tribute to the 7 astronauts on board the Space Shuttle Columbia. Many of the crew's relatives were at the Kennedy Space Center excitedly waiting the touchdown, a touchdown which never came after a 16-day science mission which by all accounts was nearly flawless. This was the 28th mission for the Space Shuttle Columbia, focused on science as we told you, and Israel's first astronaut in space.
3, 2, 1, we have
booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Columbia with a multitude of national and international space research experiments.
10:39 a.m., January 16th. Columbia takes off.
Now controlling the flight of Columbia, the international research mission finally underway. Commander Rick Husband joined on the flight deck by pilot Willie McCool, flight engineer Kalpana Chawla, and mission specialist Dave Brown. Mission specialist Laurel Clark, payload commander Mike Anderson, and payload specialist Ilan Ramon seated down on the middeck.
10:41 a.m. About 80 seconds into the flight, a piece of debris on the external fuel tank comes off, hitting the underside of the orbiter left wing. There is some concern about overheating during re-entry if enough tiles are knocked loose. But after studying the images frame by frame, NASA engineers decide to continue the mission. 3:10 p.m., January 25th, 1 week into the mission. The crew gives CNN an update from space.
Here we had a great ride to orbit, and all the activation of the experiments in the space hab went extremely well. And we're really, we've got our space legs and up and running.
Another week passes. Saturday morning, February 1st. The crew is just hours from returning home.
Good morning, Houston. We're getting ready for a big day up here. Had a great time on orbit and really excited to come back home.
8:15 a.m. While still in orbit, Columbia fires its braking rockets. Its touchdown sequence is underway. It begins re-entry. 8:59 a.m. Mission Control hears from Columbia for the last time.
And Columbia, Houston, we see your tire pressure messages, and we did not copy your last.
Roger.
9 a.m., just 16 minutes away from its scheduled touchdown on Florida's East Coast, Mission Control in Houston loses all data and voice contact with Columbia. The shuttle is seen in the skies above Dallas, Texas. At this point, the spacecraft is roughly 203,000 feet above the Earth, traveling about 12,500 miles an hour. Residents across Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana see what NASA is not yet talking about.
We were woken up by this rumble. Today we were trying to sleep in on Saturday, and we heard this, sounded like a train going through our property.
The dogs started barking and then got shook the earth.
And we've seen large masses of pieces coming off of the shuttle.
I'm devastated. It's unbelievable.
And the National Weather Service even picks up these images on radar.
That is the wreckage of the shuttle Columbia coming through.
9:20. Quiet disbelief in the control room in Houston and from onlookers at the Kennedy Space Center.
We're shocked. We're at a loss for words. We don't know what to think. We feel so sad and sorry for the families of people that have been lost. Just hope they're with God.
9:29 a.m. NASA declares an emergency. Calls reporting debris hitting the ground flood police, NASA, and newsroom phones. 9:44 a.m. NASA warns residents to stay away from the debris, which could be dangerous because of toxins in the propellants used. 11 a.m. A flag at the Kennedy Space Center next to the countdown clock is lowered to half staff. 1:30 p.m. NASA Administrator Sean O'Keefe.
We trust that the prayers of the nation will be with them and with their families. And again, a more courageous group of people you could not have hoped to know than the families of these crew members. And an extraordinary, extraordinary group of astronauts who gave their lives.
2:05. The President addresses the nation, delivering the greatest news.
This day has brought terrible news and great sadness to our country. The Columbia is lost. There are no survivors.
Now here we have the red ship.